So we have our small forwards right here. This is our pool. Right now we only have 11. A couple of really good honorable mentions that didn't make the list simply because they didn't play enough games. Chris Middleton was a guy I thought about, just didn't make the list because he didn't play enough games. Kyle Kuzma's honestly a guy I thought about. Looking into it more, he probably would more likely be on my power forward list than my small forward list, so that you'll see him potentially next week. Andrew Wiggins is another guy who I thought about, could have been on this list, but he just didn't play enough games for me. And there was someone else who crossed my mind, but simply just didn't play enough games. So if you don't see a guy here, and if you have a guy that comes to mind, drop him in the comments, or let me know. And the reason he's probably not here is either he A, didn't play enough games, or B, I might just have him on a different list. And if you got him on a small forward list, like I said, y'all know me, I'm not tripping. I'm just gonna give you my explanation. Let's get into this. So I only have 11 guys here. Previous list, like the small forward, the shooting guard and point guard list, I had like 2, 3 honorable mentions. Like I said, some of the honorable mentions that came to mind simply didn't play enough games. I would have loved, y'all know me, I'm a big fan of Andrew Wiggins. If he played enough games, he probably would be on this list. I'm gonna just flat out say that. If he played enough games, Andrew Wiggins would likely be on here. But we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna get right into it. This list, the small forward list, to me wasn't as hard as the shooting guard list was. Shooting guard list was really, really tough. I know that power forward list is gonna be tough next week. The center list might be, I'm not sure what the bottom half of that center list is going to look like. 10 people on the list, 1 person out of 11 don't go on the list. Yeah, somebody ain't going to be here. And that's my honorable mention. Usually I have like 2, 3 honorable mentions, but this week we got 1. But at the number 10 spot, this is where I have, and you can call it the homer pick, is cool with me if you want to, but at the 10 slot is where I have Tobias Harris. I thought Tobias Harris had a really, really solid season. Averaged about 14 a game this year, I want to say off the top of my head. Let me pull this up. I got everybody right here. Yeah, averaged about 14 a game this season on some solid efficiency. He did a lot considering he was the fourth, not a lot. He had a good season considering he was the 4th option for a team where a lot of his looks were either catch and shoot, the occasional post up, sometimes the catch and go, but he found the spots, he made it work. He did a lot defensively for the Sixers this year in terms of being one of the outs. If it wasn't a guard, he was the primary wing defender for the Sixers this season. So if you're a big 2 or a 3 or even a mobile 4, Tobias Harris was likely guarding you this season outside of, not McDaniels, but shooting guard that we got in the Timberwolves trade. I don't know why his name is slipping my mind right now, but Tobias Harris was a lot of our defense this season. I think he had a really, really good year. At number 9, this was not controversial, but I think I went back and forth for this one on a long time. Part of it is because outside of maybe the beginning of the season, I didn't watch a ton of this guy, so I had to do a decent amount of research to really think about where I wanted to put him, watch some film on him, mainly just some highlights on YouTube, like, watch some of his best games this season. But at number 9, because of what he does on all facets of the basketball court, number 9 is where I have Franz Wagner. Now, I was skeptical myself when I put him on here. So if you skeptical, I get that. I'm not mad at it because I'm like, this guy's in his 2nd year. How much are we really watching the Magic? Like, is it good stats, bad team? Like, those are some of the things that I'm thinking of. But I'm like, well, let's talk about what he really do. He's a good, second or third ball handler for that team. Can score with the ball, can score without the ball. He's a solid defender for the Magic. I think that side of the ball is not slept on him, but maybe I'll say I slept on it during the season. But when I really looked at him and was watching him, I'm like, solid defender. I like his game a lot. I think he has a really decent ceiling for the Magic. I'm curious to see what they do moving forward. They got a lot of options of where they can go in terms of between him, Paolo, Fultz. Like, they just have a lot of good young players, and I like what they're developing there. And I think him at 9 is pretty solid for me, at least. At number 8 is where I have the best defender on. When it comes to the perimeter, to me, Jaden McDaniels is probably the best defender in the league. The only other argument I would have is maybe him and Drew. But if you're an advanced analytics guy, if you're a guy who be really looking at the box score numbers, if you go to B-Ball Index and pull up one of their, plot chart things, every advanced stat, every stat is going to tell you Jaden McDaniels is the best defender in the league when it comes to perimeter, especially amongst wing defenders. But the beautiful thing about Jaden McDaniels that also backs that up is the eye test. When you watch Timberwolves games, he's always guarding the best player on the other team, and he's giving them a really tough time to score a bucket. And he's not a bad shooter either. Almost 40% from 3 on 4.5 attempts. I think the next step for him in terms of just making himself and his team better is maybe take a couple more shots. But 2, just trying to, keep moving off the ball, doing more offensively. But he does so much for this team on the defensive side of the ball. I won't necessarily call him just a defensive specialist because he does shoot the lights out, but he is a defensive specialist, and he had to make this list for me. At number 7, who do we have at number 7? Number 7 is where we have OG Anunoby. Now, the rest of these guys, when we get into this, it's a lot of two-way play. When it comes to, I think when it comes to be a small forward, at least to be considered an elite small forward in this league, you have to be an elite two-way guy. Like, you have to be able to play defense, because if you're not guarding one of the other best small forwards in the league, you're either guarding a guard, you're guarding a power forward. Like, there's just a lot of good perimeter players in the league, and the small forward position is leaned heavily on being able to play both sides of the ball, and OG is a great example of that. He does a great job of getting in passing lanes. Does a great job of like just pestering guards, creating a lot of turnovers for this Toronto Raptors team. Getting on, Mikhail's definitely about to be over OG. I ain't gonna hold you, Sleazy. Not gonna lie, if you Mikhail or OG, I can't get with that. I'm not mad at that, but I'll explain why in a second. I think the only thing for me that holds OG back, and it's not necessarily something that holds him back, to me at least, his game's not as polished as some of the guys ahead of him. I think his defense is excellent. I think his athleticism is excellent. He gets to the basket wonderfully. Like, he does a really, really, really good job of getting to the basket and scoring in the paint. Picking his drive and kick game is solid. Not as good as a shooter as I think I would like him to be. His mid-range game really ain't there like that. But I don't think that's what the Raptors ask him to do, and that's not what his role is on this team right now. I think they would love for him to step more into that role, and I think part of that is why this past like year and a half, to me at least, the Raptors have been in like this muddy situation of trying to really figure out what they want to do, what their offense looks like. We'll see what they look like this year. They got a new head coach, new point guard. Like, there was just a couple of weird years after their championship run. I ain't gonna hold you. After the championship run, Kawhi left and it got a little muddy, in my opinion there. OG's really, really good. Don't get me wrong. OG's really, really good. He's just number 7 on my list. And right above OG, Sleazy, that's why I'm like, I can't be mad at you if you want him over. At number 6 is where I got Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges, and this ain't even just based on his Brooklyn time span. Because you gotta remember, even when he was with, before he got traded, when he was still on the Suns, there was a good stretch where both Chris Paul or Booker was out. And it was Mikal doing a lot, already starting to show a lot more to that, being able to dribble with the ball, score with the ball, some of that mid-range game, being a shot creator, not just a cutter guy, a catch and shoot guy, a defender guy. So we already know the defensive prowess that he had, but I think we started to see some of this offensive game blossom just because of need and opportunity with players being injured on the Suns. But once he got traded to the Nets, we saw a whole new player. We saw a whole new player, and I love the version of Mikal that we saw once he was a Brooklyn Net. And I think he's going to have a solid... My lists, I think I need to preface this because I do a lot of, like, when I talk about these guys, I'm basing it off of last year's regular season. I usually say this in the beginning, but I forgot. So I base these off of last year's regular season. But as I'm talking about guys, I get into projection world and what I want to see from them moving forward. But this isn't necessarily a projection list. This is based on what they did. This is just how I look at it based on what they did. To me, Mikal's number 6. But if you got him and OG swapped, y'all know me, I'm not sure. At number 5 is where I have DeMar DeRozan. Earlier I said all these guys, all the small forwards have to be two-way guys. Like, to be a top 10 small forward in this league, for the most part, you gotta be a really, really good two-way guy. Unless you're DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan had a really, really solid year. Still averaged 24 points, 24, 4, and 5. He's just really a bucket getter. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. DeMar is, like, I really wrote down, like, oddly refreshing to watch. Now, watching the Bulls game ain't the most exciting thing in the world. Like, the Bulls aren't necessarily a great team to watch. But watching DeMar is different in the sense that it's all mid-range game. It's all mid-range. It's all getting to the basket. He's not shooting threes. It's as weird as it sounds. I don't think I realize how much DeMar doesn't shoot threes when I'm watching the game, because he's still getting buckets. He's still getting to his spots. It still looks good to watch. But then you might check the box score at the end of the game like, Dags, DeMar, you shot 1 3 this game and you missed it. Like, it's really interesting to me how much DeMar don't shoot. But to me, the reason he's over the other 4-5 guys below him, his offensive game is better than them. To me, his offensive game is that much better than the rest of these guys, so it solidifies him here. He has the ability to be a number 1 option on the team and still lead them to play-in losses, but he still has the ability to be number 1 leader on the team, number 1 option depending on talking to him and Zach LaVine, 1A, 1B, or 1 and 2. DeMar's still really, really good. And my mid-range game is unstoppable. One of the better mid-range jumpers in the league. Like, when you talk about mid-range jumpers, the ability to score, he slowed down what he was in years past, especially when he first got to the Bulls, in terms of like a fourth quarter closer. We haven't seen that level of closing that we saw when he first got to the Bulls, but he's still able to close out games, still able to hit big shots for the Bulls. DeMar DeRozan's at 5 for me. This is where I guess I'll break down my honorable mention, because if it's not obvious by now, Michael Porter Jr. is my honorable mention because he's not top 4 to me. I really wanted Michael Porter Jr. to make my list and I want to take this time to give him a shout out. I wanted him to make my list so bad. The only reason he didn't make my list, and he would have been in like this 8 to 10 area. I ain't gonna hold you. He's so specialized in just his one. Like he's great at shooting. He's excellent at shooting. He reminds me a lot, and it's not the exact same, but he reminds me a lot of like a young Klay Thompson in the sense of he doesn't let defense deter his shot. Like if he catch that ball, he's letting it fly. If he catches a ball on the 3-point line from Jokic or Jamal Murray, he's letting it fly. His shot is textbook. He has the ability to shoot over defenders because he's taller. He shoots at an extremely high clip. I want to say he was like 41% this year on 7 attempts a game, but he doesn't really do much else. Like he's not a guy who's going to put the ball on the floor and get to the basket. He's not a guy who's going to put it on the floor and have a mid-range pull-up. He's not a great defender really at all. Like they hide him a lot on the defensive end of the ball. The Nuggets don't put him on elite perimeter guys. And I think that might be just like a mental thing for him, or he just has to continue to develop, because to me, in my mind, he has a great frame to be an excellent defender in the league. He has the speed, he has the athleticism. So he just has to work on either the defensive skill of, knowing where to be, working on sliding his feet, just having the mindset of being a better defender, or on the other side of the ball, just doing a little more offensively. I think he has potential to be able to, and not too much, because yes, Jokic is the offensive hub. Jokic gonna get doubled, and Michael Porter Jr. gonna be wide open for 3. So why do I have to put the ball on the floor to do something else? But I would love to see him develop a little bit more of a post game, because he's so he has that size, be able to put the ball on the floor a little bit more, just to give the Nuggets some more options for those stretches when Jokic isn't on the floor. But he's my honorable mention. I love his game. He didn't make my top 10. Well, what's good with you, my guy? Thanks for pulling up. OG has had very little statistical improvement. I'm not mad at that. Nah, it's not. That's what I was saying. That's why I was explaining. It's not necessarily the breakout in Brooklyn. The breakout in Brooklyn helped, I will say, but he definitely would have been my top 10 just off the trajectory that he was having with the Suns. He was having a very, very good season with the Suns this year. If MPJ had a better finals performance, I wouldn't be mad at that spot. I get that. Wait, if you saying if he had a better finals performance, you wouldn't be mad at him being 11? Because technically he's 11 for me. Technically he's 11. But not all the times, and I say this every week, but there's always some guy who breaks this rule. I try not to put playoff performance, unless it's like astounding, have it weigh that heavily on my decisions of where to put people. Let's see. At number 4, that's where I have my guy PG. Still an elite two-way guy, still a great shooter. Mid-range game is there, can get to the basket. One of the smoothest dudes in the league in terms of the offensive side of the ball. The defense isn't, in my opinion, what it was 2, 3, 4 years ago. Part of that is age, part of that's injury, part of that is he only played like 50-something games. So not that you can't get in the rhythm defensively, but in my head, I'm like, sometimes I feel like when I watch Paul George, like, okay, you didn't play yesterday, you playing today. You just look like you're moving a little bit slower, not necessarily taking it easy, but not going 110% all the time. So to me, the defense ain't what it used to be, but I still, in terms of like two-way, like elite two-way play, he's one of the best of the league, because he truly is, in my mind, still elite on both sides of the ball when he wants to be and when he's in a rhythm. But he only played like 50-something games this number. Where we at on time? All right, 22. What is it? 8:30. All right, that's good. That's good, because then we'll finish this up, go through a couple more stuff. All right. We're moving. BI is an excellent one to talk about too. He's one of them other guys. Let me look it up, because I'm pretty sure I didn't write it down, but I'm pretty sure when I looked him up before, he didn't make my list because he only played 45 games. So RJ, he probably would have been on my list. But when you only play 45 games, I try to shoot for 50. Like I try to shoot for at least 50 games. He just missed it. Years prior, I did half the season. But this season I've tried to do like the 50 game cutoff was where I did a lot of people. All right, so I just his perfect list so far. I put Brian next. We're gonna do this a little out of order. Well, not necessarily. At the 2 and 3, I went back and forth for a while. Number 1, I feel like we all know where I'm going. Number 1, best small forward in the league, in my opinion, this season was Jason Tatum. I'm gonna put Jason Tatum number 1. Had an excellent season this year. Like, I mean, could do no wrong, but like really elite on both sides of the ball. Hit a lot of big shots for the Celtics down the stretch of games. I witnessed it firsthand in was that game 6 of that second round series where he went crazy in the fourth quarter against my Sixers. But he did. My point is, he did game 6, but he did that all season long. He had an absolutely excellent season. In my mind, best small forward in the league. Two-way play was there. The only thing I keep wanting more from Jason Tatum, and we'll see if we get that this year with Marcus Smart leaving and Malcolm Brogdon and Derek White having to figure out the point guard position now. I wanted him to be more of a playmaker. And I think this is a want that I don't know if I'm going to see it happen. Like, I don't know if he's going to turn into this playmaker that I want him to be. He was at 4.5 assists this year. Like, he was at like 4 last year. I would love to see him get to like 6. And those two, you'd be like, okay, Hawk, 2 more assists. Like, what is that? You know, what does that even do? But to me, that those 2 assists would show more of a willingness to pass and a better ability to make the right passes. Yeah, it's on your teammates to make the shots and stuff. But I think to me, he had the best regular season for a small forward. No, Jason Tatum was killing this year, bro. Tatum was, I would have felt wrong putting anybody above him in terms of just small forwards for regular season. I would have felt wrong for putting anybody else above him. I have my 2 and 3 written down. I'm re-looking over my notes one last time before I fully commit to this decision, because what I want to do feels different than maybe what I should do. RJ, that's the gag. Like, it's supposed to be. Yes, I'll say yes. This is regular season. There's only a few guys. Yes, this is regular season. I base this on regular season. I'll usually sometimes maybe mention somebody's playoffs, but I'm basing this, yes, essentially on regular. 64 games. I want to see how much these 2 guys played before I make my decision of where I want to put these next couple of people. I say it's a regular season, but I want to do something based on playoff performance because I really want to put low key, you ain't lying, RJ. All right, so LeBron James and Jimmy Butler, I'm not gonna hold you, I'm split on. I am. I wanted to let some of my postseason bias seep in here and give Jimmy a nod. But Jimmy really don't be taking the regular season not that he don't take it serious. Jimmy just really elevates his game so much in the playoffs that he really does look like a completely different player on both sides of the ball, defensively and offensively. That being said, if I'm going off just regular season, I don't think it's disrespectful to put Jimmy at 3. And I'm going to put LeBron James at 2. You can call it glazing. You can say I'm hating on Jimmy. I don't think one position is like hate or ODing and doing too much. But Jimmy Butler had a phenomenal regular season. We know what he is. We know what he can do. That Miami Heat team is one of those teams that, and I didn't even bother talking about them that much this summer as I've had in summers past, because they proved to me this season that it don't matter. Because last summer we talked about a ton about how the Miami Heat didn't do anything in the regular season. In the offseason. And then this year they still end up going to the NBA Finals. And me and my boys, I got a couple boys who are Heat fans. We in the group chat like, yo, they haven't done anything. They lost Vincent. Like they lost Vincent. And obviously because they're waiting on a potential Damian Lillard trade, this, that, and the third. And we're like, yo, if they don't get Dame, what are they going to do? They just figure it out. And part of that reason that they just figure it out is Jimmy Butler, because Jimmy Butler just gets it done for them. They have a really, really good team. Jimmy Butler is one of those guys, low key similar to DeMar DeRozan. He not going to take a lot of threes. And he took 3 this year. He was at 35%, just barely above league average. But he's going to get to the basket. He's going to get fouled a lot. He's going to operate in that mid-range game. He's going to bully you in the post, especially bullying smaller guards that get switched on him. He has the speed to go by bigger defenders. Jimmy Butler is an excellent, excellent basketball player. And when he turns it on, he's on. And I left LeBron James at number 2 because although LeBron James struggled with a lot of injury this season, only played him and Jimmy low-key didn't play a ton of games this year. Jimmy played 64 games. LeBron played 55. So LeBron was in and out of the lineup due to injury. I think the last couple of weeks of the season going into the playoffs, he had I'll say less than expected performance. I think his foot was still bothering him a little bit. A little slower on the defensive end of the ball, but he's still a great floor general. He still can score whenever he wants to score. And I wouldn't say he's a bad defender. I just think he's not as good as the defender he's been in years past. You didn't think I'd put JT at 1, Sleaze? Hey, perfect list. I'll take that. I ain't never heard nobody say perfect list. I mean, it's rare that somebody says perfect list. I'll take that though. I'm not going to cap. You had me to the top 3, then you lost me. So I'm curious, RJ, what would your top 3 be? And Sleazy, if you didn't think I was going to put JT at 1, who did you think did you think I was going to put LeBron at 1 or Jimmy at 1? Because out of those 3, I only can see one of those 3 being number 1 in my mind. But this is my top 10 small forwards from the 2022-2023 regular season. Jason Tatum at 1, LeBron James at 2, Jimmy Butler at 3, Paul George at 4, DeMar DeRozan, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Jaden McDaniels, Franz Wagner, and then Tobias Harris at 10. So that's my list. I'm curious to see what y'all would make different, what you would change, but that's my list. You put OG over Mikal. I'm not mad at that. You was gonna put Bron, Jimmy, and then JT? Oh, nah. I mean, I say, oh, nah, but if I saw that list, I wouldn't. Nah, I can't. I was about to say, I can't say I wouldn't be mad at that if I saw that list. I truly think Jason Tatum had the best season of small forwards this year. Like, Jason Tatum was phenomenal phenomenal this year. If people swap Jimmy, like, I was going back and forth a lot between Jimmy and Bron. My first draft of this list, I think I had Jimmy at 2 and Bron at 3, but part of that was because of how good Jimmy was during the playoffs. And because Jimmy's ranking, even Jimmy at 3, a lot of it is because of the playoffs. I ain't gonna hold you. A lot of that is because of the playoffs. So because I was split so much between Bron and Jimmy, I gave Bron the nod at 2 and 3, just because Jimmy was already getting a lot of love from the playoff performance. Because if we really was going strictly regular season, I can't tell you Jimmy would be 3. I'd probably have Paul George over him, and then I'm looking at Jimmy and DeMar, and then I'll probably keep Jimmy over DeMar. So Jimmy might be 4 if I'm doing just regular season. But you got to sprinkle a little bit of that. The playoff performance that Jimmy Butler had, you got to sprinkle a little bit in there when you're doing your rankings. Just for me, I have to. So that's why Jimmy's at. Alrighty. All right, continuing on. Let me pull up my notes. So we're doing a couple of things today.